Is that music? Yeah.
Wow.
We don't do that in America.
And I think that the only problem with this story, AA, besides we just have to kind of briefly talk about it, is we actually have no idea what in the world, why they were doing this.
I mean,
why are they mad? I mean, none of it makes any sense to me.
I mean, they were trying to stop the police. They were trying to build a barricade to stop the police
from hurting their tunnels, which they made for reasons. What?
The rabbi has released this statement, which I can read here. The Chabad Lubavitch community is pained by the vandalism of a group of young agitators who damaged the synagogue below Chabad headquarters on 770 Eastern Parkway Monday night. These odious actions will be investigated, and the sanctity of the synagogue will be restored. Our thanks to the NYPD for their professionalism and sensitivity. We are grateful for the outpouring of concern and for the support for our Chabad Lubavitch institutions around the world. So that was the statement. I mean, you convinced by that or what? It's
I don't know. It just, and then they're all. It was the students, right? The students are the ones. I think I read that were trying to like defend the tunnels.
Well, from what I understand, there's a split in this synagogue between there's a kind of radical youth faction of quote unquote extremists who, for some reason, have built these tunnels, and a kind of more moderate faction. Also, this particular synagogue has support from Jared Kushner or something. But I mean, this has to be one of the strangest stories we ever covered on this show. I mean,
it's amazing. And then I was seeing somebody sharing his tweets from November, and he's saying, "See, guys, I wasn't crazy." And his tweets in November say, "I'm on the bottom floor and I'm hearing something under me. I'm hearing Yiddish."
I mean, why? I mean, the obvious question is why. Now,
well, okay. So the first thing that a lot of people seem to say was, "Hey, well, this was getting around COVID lockdowns so that they could get to their school and continue to do things during lockdowns. And it's like, oh, we can kind of understand the lockdown sucked. But then
Yeah,
somebody said,
and
no,
also
no,
because
they dug them. But then someone said, no, they dug them like 6 months ago after the lockdowns were
yeah, I mean that's
over.
the problem
Anyway, I don't.
because New York police and the New York government were particularly harsh on Orthodox, and Hasidic Jews during the COVID.
I remember that. Yeah,
yeah, and there were quite a number of clashes between them over that. So that narrative made sense for a moment, but then of course, like you, I heard that. Well, no, they were actually more recent. But if you look at them, if you look at any of these sort of images, they don't look recent at all. I mean, it looked like quite medieval. So I don't really know. And then I'm hearing things, of course, that the tunnels connected like the women's part of the yeshiva or
the mikveh, the place where you do a ceremonial cleansing, which would be used primarily by women in relation to menstruation, but also by men for certain special days and stuff like that. So
things.
it would be the bath, the baths.
Right? And people should realize. I mean, again, I don't fully understand it, but I do know that I mean, this is sort of like a dynastic faction of it's like one sort of group of Hasidic Jews. I mean, there's apparently other sort of dynastic sort of offshoots of the Hasidic movement, but this is like the biggest one. And this particular Chabad, as it's called, or Chabad Lubavitch, yes, associated with like particular rabbis and particular sort of strain of this movement. So and I knew about this. I mean, I lived for a time when I lived in New York. I lived in various places, but I lived in Brooklyn for a while, in Williamsburg, and so I was sort of frequently in contact with these sorts of people. And I remember, like they this particular one. I remember they had a van which would drive around, blaring blaring some sort of Hebrew Yiddish, and it had a big picture of the late rabbi who was sort of like instrumental in growing this movement. And I think that there's a faction that are claiming that he was the Messiah, because there's a kind of messianic branch of this particular Hasid. So it's all very much kind of a very factional organization. But I have heard no kind of coherent explanation for what exactly is going on.
There was a fellow named Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson who died in 1994. 1994, Mr. D. And Schneerson was proclaimed to have been the Messiah.
The Messiah, and he lived this. I believe this was his home. This building that we're talking about, and it's now become sort of like kind of a synagogue and an office